أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's continue inshallah with the Ya ayyuhallazina amanu series, going through every single verse in the Quran that begins with Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. We find ourselves in verse number 101 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Right? 101. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tas'alu an ashya'a in tubda lakum tasukkum wa in tas'alu anha hina yunazzalu al-Qur'anu tubda lakum afa Allahu anha wallahu ghafurun halim. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He calls out to the believers and He says, O you who have belief in your heart, listen up and listen carefully. La tas'alu an ashya', do not ask about things. In tubda lakum, if they are made clear for you, if you receive the answers that you are asking for, tasukkum, they will hurt you and they will harm you and you will be very upset. وَإِن تَسْأَلُوا عَنْهَا حِينَ يُنَزَّلُ الْقُرْآنُ تُبْدَ لَكُمْ, and if you ask about these things when the Qur'an is being revealed, then they will be made clear for you. تُبْدَ لَكُمْ, they will be made clear for you and you will know the answers to them. عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهَا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven you for asking such questions. وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever forgiving and most forbearing. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning the believers not to, well, there's a number of ways that we can look at this, right? One of the ways in which we can look at this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the believers, don't ask questions unnecessarily about revelation, right? Don't ask about things that you yourself, if you know you find out the answer to, you're going to be very, very upset about it, right? The second way that we can look at this is, don't ask questions about certain things in the deen that if you were to ask about it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to you with regards to it, making it obligatory upon you to do. So if you ask about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it obligatory upon you to do it, and that will be too hard for you to do it, so you wouldn't like what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you to do, and you will turn away from the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So those are two ways. Either you ask about something concerning yourself, Allah tells you about it, and you're like, dude, I wish I didn't ask. Or you ask about something in the deen and you don't like the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has now made it obligatory or told you to do it, advised you not to do it, that sort of thing, right? You don't like the response that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you.
Like when Israel asked Bakr so many questions and they make it difficult.
And they made it difficult for themselves. وَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ, and they weren't going to do the slaughtering of the cow because they didn't want to fulfill the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so like this verse, obviously, because it has these multiple meanings to it, or these multiple ways of understanding it, it also has a context in which it was revealed in as well, right?
What was the context?
Yeah, there's a context that it was revealed in. So there was a Sahabi that came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it said that it was a man called Abdullah ibn Hudhafa as-Sahmi. I think we took him in one of the Sahaba series as well. He came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was. People would claim that his father wasn't his father, like he actually belonged to somebody else, right? And like they would sort of insult him in that way. So he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what is who's my father? And he said, your father is Hudhafa, like your father is your actual father. Don't worry. And he's like, okay, alhamdulillah. Somebody else was with him, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ about his father, and his father had passed away. And he said, where is my father? And he says, your father is in Jahannam, or your father is in the hellfire. And he got really upset, and he got really sad. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tas'alu an ashya' in tubda lakum tasukkum. There's another sort of instance in which it's debated whether this is the reason why the verse was revealed, or the Prophet ﷺ just quoted this verse when this was going on. So they were asking the Prophet ﷺ, the companions came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him about the Hajj. And they were asking all these detailed questions about the Hajj. What do we do? What do we not do? How do we do it? When do we go? When do we not go? And so on and so forth. One of the questions that they asked him was, are we supposed to do it every year? Was it just once in a lifetime? Or do we do it once every 5 years, once every 10 years? And they started doing a Bani Israel thing, when there was they're really going into the nitty-gritty details of certain things. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَتَحُجُّ الْبَيْتَ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. You make Hajj if you are able to make the journey. So that's it. So they started asking all these questions about it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if I respond to your questions like this, if you keep asking me, are we supposed to do it every year or not? If I say yes, right, you should do it every year, it's going to become wajib upon you. Just like in Ramadan, when people used to say about the Prophet ﷺ, he came out in Taraweeh. The Prophet ﷺ only prayed a couple of days of Taraweeh with the Sahaba in the masjid. The rest of the time he prayed his Taraweeh in his home. He didn't actually pray in the masjid. And so when he was asked, he came on the first day, and no one was expecting him to come. Right? They were sitting there after Isha, they were chilling, and then the Prophet ﷺ comes out, Allahu Akbar, and he starts to pray, and he starts to recite, and he recites Baqarah, Al Imran, and Nisa, and he's going on. And then everyone's like, oh, Allahu Akbar. The Prophet is praying, right? So they will pray with him. And he prays, MashaAllah. And then when he finishes, everyone goes out, and then suddenly all of Medina finds out, oi, did you hear? The Prophet came and he prayed a night prayer that he never prayed before. And it's called Taraweeh and stuff, and it's amazing. And the Prophet recited so well, and it was so spiritual and it's amazing. He'll probably do it again tomorrow, so let's go tomorrow. So then the next day, there was more people in the masjid for Isha, and the masjid was packed out. And so the Prophet comes out, Allahu Akbar, and everybody else, Allahu Akbar, and they'll start praying with the Prophet. And the next day, all of Medina and outside of Medina, everybody around the place has heard that the Prophet prays in the Ramadan at night in the masjid. So let's all go there. So the third night, it was so packed, they were praying even outside in the this place called Balat, which is 500 meters odd away from the actual masjid. Up until that point, that's where people had reached. And one of the amazing characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ is that he had such a, I don't know if this is a miraculous element of his voice, right, or his of his persona, but whenever he spoke, people were able to hear him from that far away. Do you know what I mean? He didn't require anybody in between to be able to for his voice to reach them. And there was no microphone, there was no speaker or anything like that. So anyway, it was so packed. And then the fourth day, the same amount of people, if not more, they were like, yo, this is gonna be sick the whole of Ramadan, this is so spiritual, da da da, right? And then there's no sign of the Prophet ﷺ. And people wait, until some of them are even sleeping in the masjid. They're waiting for the Prophet ﷺ. And he doesn't come out. And then the next day comes, and then he comes and he prays Fajr, and then they ask him, Ya Rasulullah, you prayed with us the first couple of nights, and you didn't come out last night, what happened? And he said the same thing about Hajj. He said, Khashitu an tufrada alaykum. I was afraid that if I keep coming out like this, you guys are going to keep doing it, and it's going to become something that is wajib. Not because Allah made it wajib on you, because you've made it wajib upon yourselves to do it. Do you know what I mean? So, just like that, don't ask about things. So going back to the verse here, don't ask about things that if you are, so they were asking about Hajj, don't ask about it too much, that if you are responded to with a response, you're not going to be able to fulfill the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thus you're going to detest it, and you're going to turn away from the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is exactly what happened to Bani Israel. They would ask their prophets concerning things about their religion. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it clear to them what they're supposed to do, they'll be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Nah, I don't really like that. I'm not going to do it. So they'll turn away from the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there were some, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were some people that if they were وَالَّذِينَ دُعُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ, that when they are called to Allah and His Messenger to judge between them in their affairs, they will turn away, because they know that the judgment is not going to be in their favor, and they're not going to like the judgment of Allah and His Messenger. وَإِن يَكُنْ لَهُمُ الْحَقُّ يَأْتُوا إِلَيْهِ مُذْعِنِينَ. But if they know that they have a right, they know that they're going to be successful in their claim, the dunya is going to come to them as a result of the judgment of Allah and His Messenger, they come to it in full submission. Tamam? So they are only looking for that which they want from revelation. Tamam? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, don't ask about things unless the response comes to you, you don't like it. Tamam? Yeah. Now a question could come around about here, right? Some Sahaba would genuinely ask the question. And when they ask a question, they don't actually know the response. They don't know if it's going to be a good or bad thing, right? They're asking a genuine question. Like that man who was asking about his father, maybe he thought okay, maybe my father is in paradise, or he's destined for paradise. He didn't know he was destined for hell, right? So maybe it was all in innocence. So why can we not ask the Prophet ﷺ now? Is that what's going on? Can we not ask questions now that are going to be revealed to us, even though we don't know the answer to? So let's say it's a bad thing. We didn't know it was going to be a bad thing. Let's say we're not going to like the answer. We didn't know we're not going to like the answer. We don't even know the answer itself. So how can we possibly know that? And how can we like be asked not to ask? It's a good question, isn't it? Yeah, even I'm like, oh, subhanAllah. The response to that is that either a person doesn't, either that thing that they're asking of, they have to be ready for the answer. They have to be ready for the answer, right? One day the Prophet ﷺ was in the masjid, and people were asking him these questions, and he was answering it, left, right, center. And he actually stood up once, and he said, look, anybody that has a question and wants to ask me, I'm going to answer them, right? And they would ask him all sorts of questions, and he would answer them straight away. It will be about the past, it will be about the present, it will be about the future. One day the Prophet ﷺ stood up in the masjid, and he gave a khutbah, and he started to speak to his companions, and he described everything that was going to happen from that point onwards, when he was standing at his minbar, up until the Day of Judgment. And then the Rawi of the hadith, he says, حَفِظَهَا مَنْ حَفِظَهَا وَنَسِيهَا مَنْ نَسِيهَا. Whoever remembers it, and whoever's forgotten it, has forgotten it. And some people, they remember it whenever the things that they were told about by the Prophet ﷺ, they happen to them. And they're like, oh, that's what the Prophet ﷺ described to us back then, when he was on his minbar, right? Which also shows the makana of the Prophet ﷺ with regards to his ilm. Allah Azza wa Jal showed him things that were not possible for him to know, or not possible for him to come to know by himself, right? These are all gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of his knowledge. So whenever these things came about, whenever the revelation was open to him, and the what's it called, the alam al-wahi was open to him, people would ask him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would show him the answers. And he would say that I even see it is like pictured on the wall. Like, you know, we have a projector screen and we're seeing things on the wall. That's how the Prophet would see like Jannah and Nar being shown to him, right? And he would see the people in Jannah, and he would see the people in Jahannam. In Tirmidhi, the Prophet one day he came out to his companions. He had a book in his right hand and he had a book in his left hand. And he said to his companions, أَتَدْرُونَ مَا هَذَانِ الْكِتَابَانِ? Do you guys know what these two books are? And they said, لا إلا أن تخبرنا. Like, just tell us, Ya Rasulullah, what are these two books? And he said, in my right hand, أسماء أهل الجنة وأسماء آبائهم وقبائلهم. That in my right hand is a book. It has all of the names of the people of Jannah, and their fathers, and their tribesmen. And in my left hand, أسماء أهل النار وأسماء آبائهم وقبائلهم. That in my left hand there is a book, and in it has all the names of the people of Jahannam, their fathers, and the tribes that they belong to, and the families that they belong to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him all of these things. Do you know what I mean? So the level of the Prophet ﷺ, what we think we know about him, and what we think he knew and didn't know, we have no clue. We have no clue. But this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? All of it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh, I think the speaker's down. Yeah, so this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know these things istiqlal. He doesn't know these things on his own. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He shows him these things. So don't ask unnecessary questions. That's the long and short of this ayah. Don't ask unnecessary questions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next ayah, in 102, قَدْ سَأَلَهَا قَوْمٌ مِّن قَبْلِكُمْ ثُمَّ أَصْبَحُوا بِهَا كَافِرِينَ. Allah, which reinforces the point that we said, that people before you have asked their prophets, questions like this, questions about the deen and so on and so forth. ثُمَّ أَصْبَحُوا بِهَا كَافِرِينَ. And then they have become, as a result of these questions, or as a result of the answers to these questions, they have become disbelievers. They turned back on their heels. They refused to follow their messengers whenever the information came to them, that which they were asking for.
This could refer to Yahud.
Yes, or Nasara, or anybody else that came before them. Universal. I think that the microphone is out, so we'll put that to the side. Okay, tamam. That's the long and short of this ayah, inshallah. Next one is in 105. A couple of ayahs later. Next page. يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم إلى الله مرجعكم جميعا فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. O you who believe, عليكم أنفسكم. Look after yourselves. Concentrate and focus on your own selves. Yeah? لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. The people who have gone astray, they will not harm you in one bit. إلى الله مرجعكم جميعا. For you will all return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will let you know, and He will inform you of all that you used to do. The sincere from amongst you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it known who is sincere. The insincere and the munafiqun from amongst you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it known who they are as well. Tamam? So here, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, عليكم أنفسكم. Look after your own selves. Right? Like, focus on your own selves. Meaning, don't be too worried about what other people are doing. Don't be too focused on their faults and their mistakes and their shortcomings. Focus on your own shortcomings and focus on your own things that are going wrong with you. Rectify your own self. You do that, you will be on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. But there's gonna be no point if you start pointing out other people's faults when you yourself are destined for Jahannam as well. You yourself are doing things that are terrible and displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're not rectifying them. Sometimes you don't even recognize those traits in you, right? But you recognize those very same traits in somebody else. Does that make sense? So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, alaykum anfusakum. Focus on your own selves. Those who are misguided, those who go to on the path of shaitan and want to follow him all the way to Jahannam, let them do that. Because that's their choice and that's their destiny. And as long as you guys are guided, as long as you are upon the Sirat al-Mustaqim, that's not going to harm you in any way, shape or form, right? Sometimes we can see people, we can see like our wider society falling into like, different types of displeasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, different types of sins. We know that doing this is a terrible thing, and sometimes we even know that these things are associated with punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That zina wasn't spread amongst the community except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down a disease that was incurable, right? And we know zina is widespread, right? So this pains us, this harms us. We're like, look, this needs to change, right? But that shouldn't be like a cause of anxiety or depression for us. We shouldn't be overcome with like fear or sadness or angst about it, right? We should be like, okay, this is happening. We still need to amr bil ma'ruf and nahi al munkar. In fact, this ayah, it could be misconstrued that alaykum anfusakum, just look after yourself, don't worry about what anybody else is doing. It could be understood that, okay, khalas, I don't need to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi al munkar. I don't need to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. I don't need to advise anybody to be a good Muslim. I just need to focus on myself. As long as I'm a good Muslim and they're all misguided, it doesn't matter, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if they are misguided, it doesn't harm you in any way as long as you are guided. Does that make sense? Obviously, this is a wrong belief. This is a misunderstanding of this ayah. And even some of like the early generations had this. Even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of the Sahaba, they had this understanding. They were like, okay, alaykum anfusakum, khalas. I don't need to give any advice anymore. I don't need to give any admonition. I don't need to warn anybody anymore. I could just like look after myself. It happened at the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, right? And he heard that people are like, they're saying that we no longer need to do al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about this, that doing this is the best quality of a believer. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You are the best nation. Why? Because you do this quality. This is your quality. You don't stand for injustice. You're not like, hey, you know what? It's all good. Let it happen as long as I'm praying five times a day and I'm doing my dhikr, I'm doing my dua, I'm reading my Quran. You do what you want. No way, man. We're never like that. Muslims are never like that. We see munkar, we're like, no, this needs to stop. Even if the munkar is against non-Muslims. Right? Non-Muslim against non-Muslim. Like, oi, respect yourself. What are you doing? Right? And especially if it's against Muslims. We don't accept that at all. I have to stand up for it. Yeah? يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين. Remember that ayah? Yeah, that's how Muslims are.
May I say something?
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. So I was speaking to one of the brothers. He was born Muslim.
Yes.
From Turkey.
Yes.
And he was giving me dawah for dunya.
Yes.
And he's kind of like, my grandfather's age. And he told me I'm 74 years old. And I've been, working and doing this and this and this. And I've built houses and I've done this. And I started talking to about thinking a little bit like tamaruna bil ma'ruf.
Yes. Giving da'wah, yeah?
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar.
So he was giving me dawah for dunya.
And you were giving da'wah for deen.
Dawah
Amazing.
of deen.
Yes, amazing.
And then when I said to him, uncle, what about hereafter? You were born Muslim and all that. And he said, I'm 74 years old now.
Huh.
And you're the first person who's talking to me about deen, about Islam.
No.
Believe me.
No.
Yes.
He just wasn't listening on Friday.
So I said to him, uncle, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Still there is time. Please start going towards masjid.
Huh.
Alhamdulillah, there are so many brothers who do come to masjid.
Uh-huh.
But there are so many Muslim persons.
Did he start coming?
Yeah, I did.
Allahu Akbar. Amazing, man. Amazing.
And so like you said, tamaruna bil ma'ruf.
Yes. Yeah.
Is our, in a way, we
Yes.
should remind others as well. Right?
Yes, absolutely, man.
So
100%.
So it's like, there are so many out there
Yes.
who don't even, they were born Muslim, but
Yeah. Absolutely. No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So at the time of Abu Bakr, this happened as well, right? So people had this like notion that, khalas, we don't have to do it anymore. So Abu Bakr, he got up on the minbar and he said, look, I hear that this is going, this is happening, like you guys are saying this, right? That you don't have to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. But I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that إذا رأيتم إذا رأيتم شحا مطاعا وهوى متبعا والدنيا مؤثرة وإعجاب كل ذي رأي برأيه فعليكم أنفسكم. That وعليكم, or he said عليكم بخاصة نفسكم, or عليكم بخاصة أنفسكم, something like that. The Prophet, Abu Bakr narrated the hadith from the Prophet. He said that a time will come where shuh will be the thing that is obeyed. Shuh is like your base desires, carnal desires, gluttony, like the 7 deadly sins, basically, right? They have it in Christianity, right? 7 deadly sins, where you're just into just like food, just consumption, sex, everything is just what's it called?
fulfillment of
fulfilling your desires, right?
desires.
But that's the second one. Fulfilling desires is not the right one. It's just feeding your ego. That's the right way of doing it. Just feeding your ego, right? Shuhan muta'a is just feeding the ego, right? Wa hawan muttaba', that's following your desires. Whatever you want to do, forget what's lawful, what's unlawful, what's right for society, what's wrong for society, what's going to be good for your hereafter or not for your hereafter. None of that matters. Hawan muttaba', whatever you want to do, you just do. And it's not even like whatever you want to do. It's whatever like your feelings tell you want to do, right? You might not even want to do it. You might not even like to do it, but you're just addicted to it. That's hawan muttaba'. Does that make sense? So people can be addicted to drugs. People can be addicted to pornography. They don't even want to do these things, right? Sometimes you see drug addicts. They look disgusting, right? They look horrific, terrible. They live in terrible conditions as well. And they're just like, dude, don't you want like to not be like this way anymore? It's like, yeah, of course, man. I hate my situation, but I love the ecstasy, right? I love the crack. I can't get away from it. I just need it. And I'm willing to live this life as long as I can just get it. Do you know what I mean? That's where addiction gets you. Same thing with pornography. Some people don't even want to watch it, but they just do it. Like they're all alone at home and they just do it, right? Like the bed. But I've so many stories about this. So many brothers are telling me, like their situation. They hate it. They hate themselves for doing it. They hate the feeling that comes after it, but they just can't help themselves when they do it. Do you know what I mean? That's the addiction right there. That's hawan muttaba', right? So if you see that, hawan muttaba'. Wa dunya mu'thara. And if you see that people preferring the dunya over the akhirah, if someone calls you to the hereafter, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Right? When you see that, وَإِعْجَابَ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ, and you see that everybody is happy with the opinion that they have. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about objective morality or objective truth anymore. You come out with them with the haqq and it slaps them in the face like a Khabib and Conor McGregor, right? Just slap in the face, right? They won't accept it because they themselves are already convinced by their own ignorance of the truth. Does that make sense? Whatever they say is the truth, that is the truth. Whatever they are told by like media or whatever and that sort of thing, right? That's got to be the truth. And even if truth smacks them in the face, they're like, no, they have to deny it. Do you know what I mean? No, like killing babies, it's not that bad of a thing, is it? Do you know what I mean? No, what about 12,000? In self-defense? Do you know what I mean? Like, what on earth? That's i'jabu kulli dhi ra'yin bi ra'yi. That is, everybody already decided. They're happy with the opinions that they have. And they're defending their opinions that they have. And you look at them, you're like, dude, the truth is slapping you in the face. Can you not see that this is like wrong? It's like, no. Do you know what I mean? Right, so Abu Bakr is narrating this hadith. These are the 4 things, right? If you see these 4 things, stick to your own selves. Like there's no amount of amr bil ma'ruf is going to make any difference now. And in fact, if you do amr bil ma'ruf, you're the one who's going to be in harm's way. You're the one who's going to be sent to jail. You're the one who's going to be ridiculed. You're probably going to lose your job, right? Do you condemn Hamas? All that nonsense, right? That's what's going to happen to you, right? So when you see that, now Abdullah ibn Abbas, he goes, this is not our time. nor is it the time of my companions, yani the tabi'een, atba' tabi'een, and stuff like that. But there's going to be a time when this is going to come. And this relates to another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi." So the hikmah, the Prophet knew this stuff, man. And that's why he said the things that he said. And when he gives us instructions, right, they are so relevant to every single time. And sometimes not all of them are able to be applied, but there's always something in the words of the Prophet and something in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is applicable 24/7. Come rain or shine, back in the day or even 21st century, right? The Prophet said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi." That whoever sees something wrong, let him change it with his hands. Time of the Sahaba, they were strong, Iman was strong. Everybody recognized them for their adala and their sidq, for their their uprightness and their truthfulness and honesty. So khalas, when they said something, Abu Bakr said it, Umar said it, Jabir ibn Abdullah said it, Mu'adh ibn Jabal said it. Khalas, we have to accept it. Zayd ibn Thabit, he said something about the Quran. Ya Allah, khalas. Does that make sense? فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. And if he can't, then with his tongue. Then let him speak out about it. Right? So that is like the Middle Ages of Islam. Right? When the ulama didn't necessarily have sulta, they didn't have power, but if they spoke, everybody listened. Does that make sense? They would say something, like this is haram, everyone was like, yo, it's haram. Imam Nawawi, right? He said it's haram. Ibn Taymiyyah, he said it's haram. Fulan ibn Fulan from the Mashaykh said it's haram. So khalas, like, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that on board. That's important to me, right? Fast forward now to our time. No amount of physical action is going to change anything. No amount of speaking, because nobody's listening, right? So what's left for us? فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَلْيَكْرَهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ, right? And if he doesn't, so let him hate it in his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ, and that is the lowest part of Iman. That's the weakest part of Iman. Still from Iman though. Still from Iman. And don't feel like bad about it, that you can't change it with your hands or you can't change it with your tongue, because it's still from the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? You're still following the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the Prophet advised or counseled us with doing with our actions, and if we can't, with our tongues, and if we can't, then with our hearts. That is still from the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So don't feel like we're deficient in some way, right? Because we still want to change it, we still want to speak out about it, and there's still people who do speak out about it, and they end up going into prison, right? Even in the Muslim world, they end up going into prison. So our du'as are with these brothers, with these mashayikh, and with these people who want khair, inshallah ta'ala.
You just mentioned about the addiction. And in Karachi, there is the biggest problem which people are facing now. Every household, the mums they are worried because the young kids, especially the young daughters or sisters, they are addicted to their mobile phones. They are not able to take those mobile phones.
Yeah, they can't, man. Yeah.
Mobile phone is not bad, but the use of it.
Yes.
And the screen time.
Yeah, and the wasting
girls
time.
are
Yeah.
spending, it's just.
Yeah, boys too, man. Like, it might be a girl thing in Pakistan, but boys as well, man.
Girls are more addicted to the boys.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about Karachi. I don't know about London or anybody else, but this is a big.
No, I think I don't know. I don't know of any young guy, except that they're like addicted to social media. I don't know of any young girl except that they're addicted to social media, right?
It's so bad.
This is the new type of sihr.
Yes, it is.
They're just glued on. They're in the toilets and they're just watching things.
Absolutely.
They're in their beds and they're watching things. They wake up and they're watching things. Have you seen that video of that little baby kid? She's sleeping and she's doing this. She's got nothing in her hand. She's just sleeping. She's doing that. You guys are young. Talk to me about social media, man. Is it not addictive? You guys on it bare, yeah? On it bare, right? I'm on it bare as well, man. Trust me. Like all of us are on it, man. Even elderly, right? So you know the elders from amongst us, right? They don't have much to do. They're not working anymore. Their families they've got grandkids and stuff like that. So most of the time they're just jamming. And one of the ways of them connecting with everybody is through social media. So they end up being addicted to it, like on another level. Like they're on it for hours and hours and hours. Like I know some old people.
One reporter,
It's like, yo, your screen time is like 8 hours on like Instagram. What are you doing? What are you doing for 8 hours on Instagram? Yeah, it's just like, no, I just went to speak to someone and then start scrolling. You're like cookery, and then you're learning about mountains, and then suddenly like shark attack. It's crazy, man.
It was so funny that one reporter said that the parents are no longer in control of kids. It's the internet and the mobile.
Yeah, man. And that's the sihr, man.
Unfortunately.
That's the sihr of the sahir. Watch out, yeah? That's the new type of sihr, yeah? The delusion. Like you're learning something or you're experiencing something, but you're not. You come out of it like you don't even know what you've watched. Half the time, like the shorts that you go through or the reels that you go through, you don't even know like what they are, and then you come out of it like after 2 hours of scrolling, you could probably remember like 3 or 4 reels, but the rest of it you don't even know. But you've internalized all of that subconsciously, right? And that's messed up with your mind, your thought process, your way of understanding the world. All of that has been affected by that. Does that make sense?
You have to change it, right?
Yes.
You have to change
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
our generation.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have
yeah.
to teach them, right?
100%, man. 100%. Low screen time, abstinence. Yeah. No TV. Allah musta'an, man. Let us be those who practice what they preach. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون. That's going to come inshallah. Let us نسبق الأحداث, right? Yeah, it's going to come inshallah later. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم. So look after your own selves, but still do أمر بالمعروف, right? ونهي عن المنكر. لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم إلى الله مرجعكم جميعا فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. And that's why. The reason why we don't understand عليكم أنفسكم as in leave off أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says إذا اهتديتم, and part of being guided is that you yourself are doing أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. If you're not doing that, then you're not from one of the muhtadeen. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
It's like Surah Namal.
Ah.
يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم. And then Sulaiman alayhi salam laughed at the Namla that she worried about the community.
Yes.
We have a lot of similarity with the colony of the ants.
Yes.
So the ants could have just been in her dwelling.
Yeah.
But she says to the rest of the community
Yeah.
to go in.
Yeah.
And she found the excuse for the army of Sulaiman as
Yeah.
well, that he might well be
لا يحتملنكم
threatened
سليمان.
you
Yeah.
without knowing.
وهم لا يشعرون.
So look,
Yeah.
balance is very important.
وهم لا
Sometimes you
يشعرون,
have to
yeah.
find excuse for the disbelievers as
الله
well.
أكبر.
If they do something, maybe they don't understand.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't that the same? What's it called? The Prophet ﷺ used to say about Bani Ta'if. اللهم اغفر لقومي فإنهم لا يعلمون.
Yes.
Yeah. And in Surah Yasin, قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. Yeah. So like, I wish my people knew. Like he hoped good for them, even though they had killed him, man. Right? They killed this man, and he ended up going to Jannah as a shaheed. And then when he got there, he's like, I wish my people knew. I wish they were guided. Like they just killed him, and he's wishing for them guidance, right? Because he's seen what Allah has in store for them, right? And similarly, the Prophet ﷺ, the Ta'if just threw stones at him, harmed him, made him bleed from his head all the way down to his toes. Do you know what I'm saying? Like terrible, man. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Then he comes, and then the Malik al-Jibal comes and says, look, let me just get this mountain and get this mountain and just crash them together, and I'll end them for you if you want. And he's like, no. Like they may be guided one day. لعل الله يخرج من أصلابهم من يؤمن بالله وحده لا شريك له ولا يشرك به شيئا. Something like that, right? Where he says, it may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leave them, they may be guided one day, and it may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring from their children and their grandchildren people who are going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not associate any partners with him. شوف the rahmah of the Prophet. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Amazing, man. Amazing.
Muhammad bin Qasim, he came from Taif, and he brought Islam to Hind. Muhammad bin Qasim was
Yes.
from Taif,
Yeah.
and he brought Islam to Hind, and now alhamdulillah.
Allahu Akbar. Look at that, man. Yeah, min aslabihim. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, he was Taif.
Yeah. Taifi, yeah.
Last
MashaAllah.
time I went to
all him.
The guy asked me who brought Islam to the subcontinent.
Yes.
Wallahi, I didn't know.
Muhammad bin Qasim, yeah.
The guy, he was a shurta. He taught me, so then I had to search on
Yeah.
straight away.
You know,
Yeah.
Makkah itself.
Allahu
you
Akbar,
know,
man.
believe it? He was 17 years old, Muhammad bin Qasim.
I believe it,
He brought
man.
Islam to it.
Yeah, I believe it, man. That's not uncommon, isn't it? Osama bin Zayd.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not common. It's not uncommon, man. Not uncommon. Abdullah bin Abbas, very young.
Yeah, very young.
Yeah, Habr al-Quran.
But that was a jazba, you know, that zeal they had.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But it's mawhiba as well. This is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allah
You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's not by chance or like, oh, he was just fortunate that this happened. Allah chose these people for these opportunities and for these roles.
حيث رسالتهم.
Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalatahu. Yeah.
You told me this in our playground when we play football last time.
Really?
Yes.
Allahu
So you
Akbar.
have to learn everywhere.
Everywhere. From the policeman when you're playing football. Anybody in the masjid? Allahu Akbar. Okay. Okay, let's try and take the one more. يا أيها الذين آمنوا شهادة بينكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت حين الوصية اثنان. Okay, so this ayah is going to be talking about the wasiyah. So when you pass away, you have to have a wasiyah. You have to have some sort of will, a bequeath that you're going to be passing on to your inheritors. So يا أيها الذين آمنوا شهادة بينكم, and you have to have this written down, right? You have to have witnesses, and you have to have that written down, some sort of توثق. Why? Because we took it in ayat ad-dayn. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه. Right? If you have a loan that you guys are going to do, make sure that you write that down. Now the loan, people are alive. I'm giving you money, right? Or you'll give me money. We're alive. If there is a dispute, we're both alive to rectify that dispute. But the one who's passed away, if there's a dispute with regards to what he's supposed to do with his wealth and what belongs to him, what doesn't belong to him, who's there to defend him? Nobody. So it needs to be written down even more, right? Tamam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا شهادة بينكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت. So if death comes to you, and إذا حضر أحدكم الموت, if death comes to you, meaning that not when you die, but like slowly, like you know the death is coming, then خلاص, like you get ready for it. حين الوصية اثنان ذوى عدل منكم. So you get two people that you trust, that are from you, that you know well, right? ذوى عدل منكم أو آخران من غيركم إن أنتم ضربتم في الأرض. But let's say you don't know who's who, right? You don't know, they're not from you, they're not from the people, you don't know them that well, and so on and so forth. But you get them, and that's if you're traveling. So if you're in your home city, you know who you're going to get as a witness. But if you're traveling, then get two people who are just and upright, who have adl in them. If you're traveling, فَأَصَابَتْكُمْ مُصِيبَةُ الْمَوْتِ, and something happens to you whilst you're traveling and you are in the pangs of death. تَحْبِسُونَهُمَا مِنْ بَعْدِ الصَّلَاةِ. You grab them after salah. Yeah, which shows you that when you're sort of out and about and you don't know who's who, the places that you're going to find people who are upright and just are going to be the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Meaning that nobody attends the masjid except that he has some form of adala in him. Does that make sense? Now obviously that's not universal. Some people come, yesterday they were baltajis, yesterday they were on the street like robbing people and doing all sorts and committing all sorts of sins, and then the next day they decided to do tawbah and now they're in the masjid. That doesn't mean that they're like trustworthy now, because they have to sort of prove themselves, right? There has to be like some sort of time that goes by. But generally, and this is a Quranic injunction, right? That people who come to the masajid, they are like إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ. They are those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have khawf for the hereafter. They have a longing to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Generally, that's these types of people. But there can be from the munafiqun, right? Masjid al-dirar, yeah? Those who build a masjid just for dunya purposes, just for people to look at them. But these things never last. They are always replaced. Let's say someone builds a masjid, right? And they build it for the wrong reasons. Let's say somebody builds a masjid across the road now, just because they don't like Finchley Masjid, they don't like people who run Finchley Masjid, they don't like the imams. So they walk out. Every time the imam leads salah, right? I'm not going to pray with him. So they set up another masjid, right? That's set up for all the wrong reasons. Tamam? So they're going to set it up. Even though that masjid has been set up and it's set up as a masjid, that masjid won't last. Either that masjid won't last in terms of the people that attend it, or the people who manage it, they won't last. And the ideas and the ideologies and the understandings of the people will change over time, and the masjid will then be sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not because of any dunyawi beef. Okay. So you get them after salah. فَيُقْسِمَانِ بِاللَّهِ إِنْ ارْتَبْتُمْ لَا نَشْتَرِي بِهِ ثَمَنًا. And they're not going to do anything with regards to this will, right? And we're not going to get some sort of reward out of it. We're not going to sell it and make some sort of material profit from it. وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. Even if it was from like the closest family and relatives and stuff like that. So let's say they're told something by the person who's passing away. Then he passes away. Then his family come to inherit. And he's sitting there. He's got all the knowledge of what he told him, right? And he's got like the wathiqa. And he says, nah, what are you going to give me for it? It's like, nah, you're not supposed to do that, right? وَلَا نَكْتُمُ شَهَادَةَ اللَّهِ إِنَّا إِذًا لَمِنَ الْآثِمِينَ. And we don't hide the witnessing that we did for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we do that, then we are certainly the wrongdoers. This is a ithm, this is a sin with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he goes on to explain it in the next verse as well. But ma alayna is pretty obvious what the verse entails, inshallah. Okay, let's take one more so that we are sort of on track. My thingy's Huh?
Finish the Maida.
Okay. Alright then, let's stop here then. Because An'am is going to be about jihad. Fi sabilillah. Wallah, should we go into jihad? No, you guys look tired, man.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys look tired, man. You guys need to rest before the battle. Yeah, تمام إن شاء الله. خلاص, we'll go through it tomorrow إن شاء الله. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. اللهم يسر أمورنا كلها يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم وفقنا لكل عمل تحب وترضاه يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعلنا من المتقين فتعلمنا ما جهلنا يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.